Hello, I'm Michele Taylor and I'm Director for Change at Ramps on the Moon. And I'm delighted to have this opportunity to tell you a bit about Ramps on the Moon. We're a consortium of theatres funded by Arts Council England, working to enrich the stories we tell and the way we tell them by normalising the visibility of deaf and disabled people in mainstream theatre. Our consortium is made up of 6 mainstream theatres, which are Birmingham Repertory Theatre, Leeds Playhouse, the New Wolsey Theatre in Ipswich, Nottingham Playhouse, Sheffield Theatres, Theatre Royal Stratford East, and we have a strategic partner in Grey Eye Theatre Company, the internationally acclaimed professional company of disabled theatre makers. At Ramps on the Moon, we believe that diversity is vital to a healthy, rich and exciting theatre industry. So we believe that a theatre industry which excludes disabled people is necessarily impoverished. We believe that stories are powerful and that theatres have a responsibility to ensure that everyone gets the chance to tell their stories and to tell those stories themselves to make sure that they are authentic and truthful. And we believe that developing audiences of disabled people goes hand in hand with casting, commissioning and employing disabled people. After all, why would I, as a disabled person, keep going to the theatre if I never see myself or my stories on stage? So we're working also to improve the provision of features such as captioning, sign language and audio description for both live shows and digital performances, as well as exploring how these access features can be developed still further. The work of Ramps on the Moon is based on the social model of disability, which says that people are disabled not by their medical conditions or their impairments, but by the ways in which environments are built, organised and maintained. I am not disabled by my medical conditions, but by things like heavy doors, stairs, a lack of nearby parking, and by people's attitudes to me and assumptions about me. Ramps on the Moon grew out of a project in 2014 when 4 mainstream theatres worked with Grey Eye to co-produce Bertolt Brecht's The Threepenny Opera and tour it to all 4 venues. The show was co-directed by Peter Rowe, Artistic Director of the New Wolsey in Ipswich, and Jenny Seeley, Grey Eye's Artistic Director, and the company was made up of disabled and non-disabled people. All 4 mainstream partners were keen to do more. The tour demonstrated that it is possible for mainstream theatres to achieve quality whilst employing the talents of disabled performers and creatives, and that it actually opens up exciting creative possibilities. Fast forward 5 years, for example, and this is Amy Leach reflecting on her experience of directing a Ramps show with a company of disabled and non-disabled people. She says, "This would prove to be the most challenging, rewarding, exhilarating, generous, risk-taking rehearsal process of my life. Every moment of every day, we collectively strived to create a democratic rehearsal process where everyone could contribute and where all needs were met graciously and inventively so that everyone could give of their best." The aspiration was to build on this creative potential by working with more disabled people and to challenge the ways in which disabled people have been excluded from mainstream theatre. 2 more theatres were brought on board, and in 2015, Arts Council England agreed to fund the consortium for 3 years. This was later extended. Each of the 6 mainstream theatre partners committed to an organisation-wide change programme to increase the employment of disabled people in their own theatre and in the wider industry. Ramps is a learning programme. Partners are committed to taking risks, to reflecting on what worked well and what could have gone better, and to sharing this learning with other partners and with the wider industry. There are a few key mechanisms that we use to achieve our ambition. First is the consortium itself. the networks that have developed across partner organisations, for example, meetings and information sharing between marketing teams and between learning and participation teams. Executive directors meet regularly at RAMP's board meetings to oversee decision making and to share learning. It's really important that buy-in from partner organisations is at the highest level, which is why the active involvement of executive and artistic directors is so important to the whole consortium. Next is our team of agents for change. Each partner organisation employs an agent for change, a disabled person who works as a catalyst in their host organisation to enable change. Their job is not to do the work of inclusion, but to push it back into the organisation to the appropriate person or team so that practice shifts and the information and expertise inhabits the organisation rather than sitting with a single individual. I always say to them that they don't have a desk, they have a trampoline. Nothing lands with them. It should rather bounce back to someone else in the organisation, working with their support where necessary. The agents for change are individuals with expertise in disability issues, and although this is not what we necessarily look for when recruiting them, all of our current agents for change are also theatre practitioners in their own right. They have impact not only because of their expertise, but also simply by being a disabled presence in meetings and in the organisation. When a disabled person is in a meeting to discuss programming, for example, the conversation can't be the same as it would be if there was no disabled voice in the room, and this has been really powerful. As Director for Change, I host meetings for all the agents to support each other and to steal ideas from each other. These meetings are invaluable and are one key way in which learning is shared amongst partners, as the agents take their new information and their new ideas back to their host organisation. We are critical friends for the Ramps on the Moon partners, so being an agent for change is not always an easy role, which is why these meetings are really important. At Ramps on the Moon, we have a pot of funds that anyone in a partner organisation can apply to if they have an idea for a project that will have strategic impact to further the employment and development of disabled people in theatre. To date, we have funded more than 30 separate projects. For example, we've commissioned training for British Sign Language interpreters to develop their stagecraft so that they can more confidently and more expertly provide integrated interpretation on stage. We have partnered with the Regional Theatre's Young Director Scheme to run workshops and training opportunities for emerging and early career disabled directors. We have funded training delivered by Diverse City to support youth theatre practitioners to work more effectively in mixed groups of disabled and non-disabled children and young people. And we've trained actors in audio description so as to provide an audio experience for the audience that is embedded into a show's setting and characters. And then there are the productions. Each year, one of the Ramps partners produces a show which opens at that theatre and then tours to all the other partner theatres. There are a number of conditions attached to making the show. First, the show's company is made up of both disabled and non-disabled people, with at least 50% of the company being disabled. As well as performers, this has included so far roles for disabled people in sound, lighting, wardrobe, stage management, and education, for example. Secondly, access provision. The captioning, sign language and audio description are part of the fundamental conception of the piece. They're not add-ons. Whilst first and foremost they have to be functional, of course, enabling people who use them to enjoy the show, they must also work as part of its overall aesthetic. Third, The show is made and supported in-house by the producing partner. It is directed by that partner's artistic director or associate artistic director. It's cast in the usual way. It's marketed in-house, and the design and technical aspects are managed in the same way as any other production that partner makes. In this way, we ensure that the Ramps production is central to the partner theatre's activity and that they own the learning which they can then pass on to the partner who's making the next Ramps show, as well as use in their ongoing productions and other work. And fourthly, we recognise the need to develop disabled talent and to offer training opportunities for disabled people. So each Ramps show has an associate director who is disabled and creative assistant roles, which are open to emerging or early career disabled theatre practitioners. In this way, they gain experience working on a large-scale production in the mainstream. The Ramps show sits within each partner's general season, and it's not marketed as a disability show. The ambition is that equality for disabled people sits easily alongside quality and artistic excellence. Stuart Rogers was Birmingham Rep's executive director when they made their show The Government Inspector, the first Ramps show, and he says this about that experience. So what we were really pleased about is that audiences came, were exposed to a whole range of people they'd never seen on stage before, a whole range of access tools combined in the production, so not added on, but actually integral to the production. And audiences loved it. I mean, they actually adored it, whether they were disabled or not. They liked the fresh approach and the feel to the production. Marketing is really important. We have found that it can be tricky to get the balance right between, on the one hand, not marketing these as disability shows, but on the other hand, making sure that audiences know that there is going to be access provision. Partners have developed expertise in producing information which incorporates captioning, audio description, and sign language, as well as providing visual stories and promoting relaxed performances and touch tools. For example, here's the British Sign Language trailer, which Leeds Playhouse produced for their production of Oliver Twist in spring 2020. Note, this film has no sound. The work of Ramps on the Moon has had tremendous recognition. In 2017, Ramps productions were in the running for 2 awards. The Government Inspector for Outstanding Achievement in Affiliate Theatre for its run at Theatre Royal Stratford East, and the New Wolsey's production of The Who's Tommy won UK Theatre's Award for Best Touring Production. Here's the trailer for that exciting musical production. The shows are a central part of the RAMPS programme, for sure, but it is very important to remember too that partners are casting, commissioning and employing disabled performers and creatives across their whole programme, not just in the RAMPS shows. Disabled performers and creatives have worked in RAMPS partners' pantomimes, Shakespeare productions, dramas, musicals and education programmes, as well as being employed in other parts of the organisation. We have seen fantastic progress in the wider industry over the last 5 years, with disabled performers and other creatives employed on and off stage across the country. As I record this in November 2020, we at Ramps on the Moon are working with others as we move through the pandemic to ensure that disabled people continue to be visible and dynamic in the mainstream theatre industry. This includes, for instance, being one of the co-authors of the document 7 Principles for an Inclusive Recovery, endorsed by key industry bodies and written to support cultural organisations to ensure that recovery plans do not exclude disabled people, but to continue to celebrate us and give us space to tell our stories. Thank you for this opportunity, and if you have any questions or you'd like to let us know how you get on with implementing even better inclusion in your theatre provision, then find us at the RAMPS website and let us know your news.